Hello and happy October! It's officially pumpkin spice season. I think it's already been pumpkin spice season for like a whole month, but anyway, cheers. I'm Rachel, this is Let Me in the Library, and today we're gonna do my October TBR. Please don't mind all the ring lights that are in my glasses. It's a very rainy day, and I just want to do this video. Okay, so I always do a dice game every single month. It's my thing. I roll these very beautiful 20-sided dice, and I roll usually 6 of these, and whatever numbers I end up getting correspond to some prompts that I always have in the description, and that helps me choose what I should be reading this month. Not always the best possible choice for me, because sometimes I also really want to mood read, but that's how I basically determine the main 6 things I'm going to try to read for the month. And then I'll also go into book clubs, buddy reads, and other such things going on. I also get to roll a 4-sided dice every time that I roll 6 of those 20-sided ones, and this lets me choose one of my rolls that I want to change by some amount, and I can change it by whatever I get on this little 4-sided dice. So that being out of the way, let's just get right into the things that I rolled this time, and then we'll talk about what I'm going to be reading. All right, let's roll for October TBR. Got a 4 and a 7. This is an 8, a 13, a 16, and a 17. Let's roll the d4 to see if any of these can be changed, by how much they would be changed. Alright. That is a 2. So the first thing that I rolled was a 4, which means that I get to use this very cute little d4, and what I did was I laid out 4 piles, and I basically said, like, this is piles 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I rolled my dice, so that way I could tell which one I should be reading. And so from that little exercise, I ended up with Burning Roses. Hold on a second. Rosa is also known as Red Riding Hood. She's done with wolves and woods. Hu Yi, the archer, is tired and knows she's past her prime. They would both rather just be retired, but it's not what the world has ready for them. When deadly sunbirds begin to ravage the countryside, threatening everything they've grown to love, the two must join forces. Now blessed and burdened with the hindsight of middle age, they begin a quest that's a reckoning of sacrifices made and mistakes mourned, of choices and family, and the quest for immortality. Okay, so I read a different S.L. Huang book way earlier this year called Zero Sum Game, and I honestly, like, it was fine, but I didn't really like it that much. This sounds so good. I love fairy tale retellings. I love reading about middle-aged women. This seems like a recipe for perfection. Next roll that I got was a 7, which is a non-fiction read, so I'll be reading Persepolis Volume 2. I mentioned being so excited to read this book after I finished Persepolis 1 because, oh my god, first of all, Persepolis? So freaking good, okay? If you haven't read Volume 1, pick it up. I'm not even kidding. It's so good. This is a graphic novel memoir of a young girl who grew up in Iran, and it was right around the time of the Cultural Revolution. You're hearing everything purely from her perspective. She's very funny. She's super lovable just as a person. The fact that you get to ever like explore any person as such a multifaceted human being is so wonderful, but then also you see everything that her family goes through in that first book, and it ends in like kind of a cliffhangery way, so I've been like dying to continue with this. Okay, the next thing I got was an 8, which is my owned TBR. I am actually choosing a book that I've already read, but the book that I've chosen is Monday's Not Coming. I picked this book because Tammy recently read a Tiffany D. Jackson book and was like, wow, I really want to read more of her backlist, and I was like, let's buddy read it, because you know me and my buddy reads, and I'm always down to buddy read. I'm super excited to go back to this because I originally read this book by audio, and now I'd really like to explore it physically because there are different time jumps that happen throughout the story that are not as straightforward as most time jumpy stories, but it's purposely kind of vague, so it's like before the before, after the after, after the after the after, and you're like, after what? Before what? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And then by the end, everything is revealed. This is about a young girl named Claudia whose best friend, Monday, disappears one day, and nobody seems to care. Like, nobody even seems to acknowledge the fact that she was a part of their lives, pretty much. And every time that Claudia tries to investigate, people are like, don't get involved in this, just go away. It's not like she's an imaginary friend, like she's literally a real person, but everyone just acts like whatever, they don't care. And so of course she's like, I'm gonna figure out what's really going on, and when I tell you the shocking things that happen in this book, it is not your typical thriller. I mean, it's very hard-hitting. It's very hard-hitting. So I'm excited to buddy read this. Tammy is going to probably be reading this one by audio, but I'm going to try this one physically, and I think I'm going to really enjoy it again. I also got a 13 roll, which is to read a sequel, so I'm going to be reading Volume 7 of Spy Family, because I've really been on a roll with this series, and I've just been reading volume after volume after volume. So if there's any book I'm going to read that is like a guarantee I'm definitely going to read a sequel besides my book club stuff, it's going to be Spy Family. Spy Family follows a spy, and for certain reasons to infiltrate a school, he basically needs to compile a fake family to get the child into the school so he can fulfill his mission. It's a long-form mission, so he basically has to find a child and adopt them, and then find a wife, so that way they look like a typical family, and they can blend in for this secret mission. But the thing that everybody doesn't know is within this family, the child is an esper, so she can read minds, and the wife is an assassin, so she's like very kick-ass hardcore, and of course Lloyd is a spy and he doesn't want anybody to know. So everybody has like their own little thing. In volume 4 they got a dog and he has his own thing, and I love him so much. So I've been really like on a roll with these. Like, I've been reading almost one a day, and it's so great. I also got a 17, which is when Goodreads chooses my TBR. So basically what I did is I grabbed one of my shelves off of Goodreads, because I have so many different ones, and then I picked a random number generator off of Google between 1 and, in this case, 140, and then I got that number item off of that shelf. And so that book ended up being The Game by Terry Schott, which I think was a book that Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages mentioned to me, and I think she was like, it's not good, but it's interesting, and I guess she described it in such a way where I was like, I'm interested in this. I think it's like a video game simulation that you have to go into to fight, so I'm a little wary because it sounds a lot like Ready Player One, and as you may know, I didn't like that book at all. The Game by Terry Schott. What if life as we know it was just a game? It's all a simulation. What if instead of traditional schools, children learned by participating in a virtual reality simulation, one that allowed them to experience life from birth to death multiple times? This is just Roy from Rick and Morty. What if one player on his final play could change the world forever? That's a very short description. That's all I know about this book. But it is 9 hours and 20 minutes as an audiobook. That's probably how I'm going to be consuming it, so here we are. This is what fate has chosen for me. The last thing that I rolled was actually a 16, but I moved it with my little 4-sided dice to be an 18. So an 18 is a graphic novel, manga, or novella, and for this one I'm going to be choosing Monster Volume 6, which I put on a TBR like 8 times by now, and I'm tired of not progressing with the series because it's actually good and I don't know what's wrong with me. Monster is very good. It is about a surgeon who basically, in a series of circumstances, ends up kind of on the wrong side of the director of the hospital for not following his instructions and listening to his own moral compass, and through a series of other events sort of ends up with like a whole murder investigation happening where he's accused of murdering a bunch of people and he didn't do it. So he's sort of clearing his name, but he also feels responsible because of his actions for the actual murderer like killing all these people, so he's trying to stop them at the same time. It's not like your really typical you know, like cat and mouse game. Like, there's a lot of layering and depth to this, and I find it like so unique for so many of the different general like mystery stories that I've read and manga that I've read in general. So I definitely think I'm gonna get, you know, at least volume 6 done this month. And that concludes my dice game portion of this TBR. So now let me talk about some book club things that I'll also be reading in October. So first off is the Fantasy Series book club that I host with Jazz from Books Past Bedtime, Nicole from Bon Bon Reads, and Christine from the Roomies Digest. We are continuing our read through of The Diviners by Libba Bray, or whatever that series is called. The second book is Lair of Dreams, which I am currently in the middle of, and that was last month's pick, technically. We're still going to be doing our live show during this month, which we'll announce in the Discord. After that, for the month of October, we're also going to be reading, Before the Devil Breaks You, which is the third book in that Diviners series. We're going to be reading this, discussing this. We have the channels open in the Discord as always, and we'll also be doing this live on Nicole's channel. Diviners itself is a historical fiction set around the 20s about all of these people who converge in New York City, and each of them have sort of different special abilities, and they're all called diviners. They're people who have some kind of supernatural ability to either walk through dreams or see the future or see certain things about someone's past through their objects, and they encounter this guy called Naughty John, I think? It sounds wrong. I always want to say like Dirty John or something, but that's really not much better. Some John man, and he is like an evil demon spirit thing that's annoying them in the first book. So this follows some of the same characters and also some new people as well in Lair of Dreams, and I've heard actually that this is like one of the best ones in the series, as well as Before the Devil Breaks You, so I think these two are like probably gonna knock it out of the water. And then for my other book club, that's the Whiners Book Club, which I host with Darian from Darian Reads, Amanda from Gingersnap Reads, and Sasha from The Redhead Reader. I'm going to be reading Nettle and Bone, which was my pick for last month that we'll be discussing this month, which is a dark fairy tale type of retelling where instead of the princess marrying the prince, she has to go on a series of quests to kill him, basically. And then the book pick that we chose for October is 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson, which I think is about this serial killer who basically enacts like copycat murders based on famous murder mysteries. I'm really hoping at this point that I've read enough murder mysteries that he's not going to spoil books that I want to still read, but I have heard that that is kind of like a thing going into this, so be prepared. But yeah, that is the plan for the Whiners. I was kneeling and my legs fell asleep, so let me resume on a stool at this point. But I am also going to be buddy reading Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore with Mo from the Roomies Digest. I got this book 3 times last year, and it was like from a series of like Secret Santas and birthday things, and also maybe Amazon didn't deliver it, so I got another one. So I ended up with 3 of these, and I gifted one to Mo, and then I also figured because I still have 2, I'm going to annotate this one and send it to my friend Nitty from Nitty Ready Reads, because she was the person who sent this to me twice. So I thought it would be really fun to buddy read this with Mo and annotate it along the way, so we can do that. Also, this cover glows in the dark. Just trust me. It's very, very cool. This is about this guy who lives around Silicon Valley, I believe, but he works at a bookstore, and it's a very strange, unusual bookstore. He ends up with a girlfriend who works at Google, and she uses kind of Google technology along with his observations of this very strange guy who manages the bookstore to uncover the secrets of this place, because it's not just a typical bookstore type of book about a person who works at a bookstore and they're so quirky and weird, but like there's magical shit happening in this place. Like people come in frantically searching for certain symbols and they get lost in the shelves, like literally, and wild things that are secret and magical are clearly happening here. So they're trying to uncover that mystery. But I have been like basically wanting to read this for like 4 or 5 years, so it's finally happening. This is exciting. I feel like people are reading their stuff this year, and like especially in October, it's like read your own TBR month or something. So it's definitely happening for me. So I already mentioned Monday's Not Coming, that I'll be reading with Tammy, so that's the other buddy read I'll be doing this month. And then that aside, I just have some other books that I am generally trying to pick up this month from general interest. So I do have the Dark Academia vlog that I had mentioned in my September TBR, so I still have a few books left over from that. A lot of books left over from that. Some of those include the Atlas 6, which I did not get to last month. A bunch of kids compete in a magician competition to supposedly claim like the best possible spot in life that is guaranteed to you if you reach the top. But I think one of them has to die, or else one of them ends up dying in the middle of the competition. I'll hopefully be able to finally get to this one this month. It says, Knowledge is Carnage. I also picked up The Last Graduate from the library, which is the sequel to the other one where the school eats you. What is that called? Oh my god. Deadly Education. Yes. Okay. I read A Deadly Education, I think, a year ago in December. I feel like some kind of weird, questionable things that Naomi Novik did with that, but I generally enjoyed the book a lot, in concept and with the characters and whatnot, so I'm interested to see how it continues, from where we left off in the last book, and this is very dark academia-ish, I think, if I'm understanding what the genre means. It takes place in a school. and some dark shit happens, including murder. So I feel like that's dark academia maybe. I also still have Catherine House, If We Were Villains, These Violent Delights, and In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. Don't know if In My Dreams I Hold a Knife is even dark academia, but the cover looks dark academia. A few other things that I picked up, I got Silver in the Wood, which is a very strange little book, very little novella, about a guy who is a wild man that lives out in the middle of the woods, and I think one other guy just encounters him. Green Hollow Hall acquires a handsome, intensely curious new owner in Henry Silver. Everything changes. Old secrets better left buried are dug up, and Tobias is forced to reckon with his troubled past, both in the green magic of the woods and the dark things that rest in his heart. So, cool. Sounds very cool. I also have Black Cake, which I have been trying to read for a while, as well as Killers of a Certain Age, The American Roommate Experiment, Dead Silence, 12 Nights at the Rotter House, We Sold Our Souls, and The Jade Setter of Jan Loon. Me bombarding you with all of these at the end is generally because these are just things that I have heard about generally, are kind of interested in, and I am just picking them up for the month if I can manage to get to them. Some of them are a little bit spooky, like We Sold Our Souls, which is about a bunch of people in a rock band who sold their souls to the devil, I think, or at least one guy did, to become famous. The Jade Setter of Jan Loon is a continuation on from the Greenbone Saga, so it's like a companion novel that I'm hoping to read this month. 12 Nights at Rotter House is just a horror book I've heard strange things about, for a writer who goes and lives in a house and then there's spooky things happening, so, you know, there's that. Dead Silence, I think, is like, you go out in space and then there's this abandoned ship and they find out that there's more going on. As always, it's a mystery. Black Cake is about I think it's a generational story about these two kids whose mother passes away and they find out that they had another sibling, and this whole history is unveiled that relates to their mother's habit of making a black cake for certain special occasions, and how that all connects back to their family history. Older women often feel invisible, but sometimes that's their secret weapon. They've spent their lives as the deadliest assassins in a clandestine international organization, but now that they're 60 years old, 4 women friends can't just retire. It's kill or be killed in this action-packed thriller. Wait, that sounds so much fun! The foursome is sent out on all-expenses-paid vacation to mark their retirement, but they're targeted by one of their own! Only the board, the top-level members of the museum, can order the termination of field agents, and the women realize they've been marked for death. Oh my god. Now to get out alive, they have to turn against their own organization, relying on experience and each other to get the job done, knowing that working together is the secret to their survival. They're about to teach the board what it really means to be a woman and a killer of a certain age. One other book, which to me might be more of a horror than other people might think, I'm going to try to read The American Roommate Experiment. I read The Spanish Love Deception earlier this year. I never released that vlog. I think maybe I will compile it with my thoughts on this book, which is the sequel companion book about Catalina, who's the main character in the first book's best friend Rosie, who I did not trust while I was reading The Spanish Love Deception. So I'll be attempting to read that one for this month, and we will see my general thoughts in vlog format. So that's basically everything that I have for this little video here. If you see any of these books that you are interested in buddy reading, let me know, or anything that you want to tell me about any of these books, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I love to know what you're thinking about for what you're reading this month, and what you think about what I've chosen for the month as well. Stay tuned, I have more content coming out shortly. I've been back on my game, so hopefully we'll be sticking to the schedule as closely as possible. But thanks so much for watching this. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing, make sure you click the bell when you click subscribe so you can also see and get updates every time that I do post a video. So cool, thanks so much. Hope you have a very spooky month. This is very exciting. Happy October, and I'm Rachel. This is Let Me in the Library, and I will see you